Hey, Greg here. Did you know that I've created a few walking tours of Bangkok? Using the GPS on your phone, the routes take you through some of my favorite areas of the city, exploring the fascinating neighborhoods and hidden history that give Bangkok its sweet, sweet mojo. Head to voicemap.me and search for Bangkok. On this episode, Ed and I put our fortune-telling hats on to see if we can make some predictions about Bangkok's future.
So if you're like us and often ponder what the next 10, 20, or 50 years will look like in Bangkok, you'll dig this episode of the Bangkok Podcast.
Sawadee-krap, and welcome to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who came to Thailand in 2001 because a fortune teller told me I'd find fame and fortune in the City of Angels, but now I realize she probably meant Los Angeles, and I missed out on being rich and famous.
Oops.
Wrong City of Angels.
And I'm Ed Knuth, an American who came to Thailand on a one-year teaching contract 24 years ago, fell in love with crazy, drunken tuk-tuk rides at dawn, and then I never did it again. But I never left anyway.
Like living on those glory days. You remember that one time? You remember that one time that tuk-tuk ride at dawn we took?
It really is about one time. You know, you got to have a crazy drunken tuk-tuk ride at least once.
Right. You do. Everyone has to do it. I remember that. New Year's Eve, we got 7 people in a tuk-tuk. Not advisable.
You know, it's a blast, but then you don't really want to do it again.
Yeah. Thank God I survived.
All right, we want to give a big thanks to all of our patrons who support the show. Patrons get every episode a day early, behind-the-scenes photos of our interviews, a heads-up to send questions to upcoming guests, and access to our Discord server to chat with me, Greg, and other listeners around the world. But best of all, patrons also get an unscripted, uncensored bonus episode every week where we riff on current events and Bangkok topics. On this week's bonus show, we chatted about a positive customer service experience Greg had with an online food platform, yay for the consumer, the machinations around the confusing and still up in the air 10,000 baht digital wallet giveaway and what it means for the economy, and talk on the current Prime Minister Shinawatra and the complex situation she finds herself in given the history of people with her last name being removed in coups. To learn how to become a patron and get all this good stuff, plus full access to over 700 bonus and regular back episodes, click the support button at the top of our website.
Right on. And don't forget, if you listen to us on Spotify, you can now hear all of our bonus shows there as well. If you're a patron, simply link your Patreon account to your Spotify account and add our new feed titled Bangkok Podcast Badass Patrons Only to hear the regular and bonus shows in the same place. Alrighty then, on this episode, Ed and I want to get a little bit hypothetical. Now, combined, Ed, you and I have been here in Thailand coming up on 50 years now together, which is a little bit crazy. And we figured that with that much time, at least gives us a little bit of street cred, and certainly enough for us to start making predictions, or at least educated guesses, about the future of our fair city that we call home. So what Ed and I have done is each come up with 3 questions about the future of Bangkok to discuss, which we'll ponder to see if, based on time served, we can come to a halfway intelligent conclusion on what things will look like in 10, 20, 50, 55, 75, 100 years, whatever it may be. So Ed, I am not a believer in fortune tellers, but I am a believer in educated guesses based on observance of past events. What do you think of this? Do you think we're going to be able to noodle our way to the future?
Well, I believe in fortune telling, man. I just believe in the foundation of it being hopefully reason and like you said, experience. We got some experience, man. So I like this exercise, seeing if we can guess the future of Bangkok or Thailand. I like this. This is an interesting challenge.
It is a challenge, yeah. And of course, 10 years down the line, someone's going to listen to this and write us an email like, you guys are so dumb, you got everything wrong. But,
we'll see. I'm ready to I'm ready to take that challenge.
Well, we'll burn that bridge when we come to it, as they say. So what we've done is each of us has come up with 3 questions that sort of ponder the future of an aspect of Bangkok or Thailand. And let's discuss. So Ed, do you mind if I go first here? I'll throw a question your way and then you'll throw one my way and we'll see where we arrive.
Sure. Okay. Hit me, man.
All right. Well, this has been on my mind lately. It rained a lot last night. And I want to ask you, will Bangkok ever solve its sinking problem?
Ooh. I actually like this question. It's funny. Obviously, we've talked about it a little bit before, and I've also discussed this with my students. I'm baffled at how little the Thai government seems to be talking about, studying. I mean, maybe they are studying it, but okay. If your question is, are we going to solve this problem? I'm pessimistic, man. I think the answer is no. I mean, okay, am I predicting that the capital of Thailand is going to have to move? I don't know if I go that far, but man, I don't understand. Did you happen to see that movie called Don't Look Up?
Oh God, yeah, those are yeah. Where the solution to the impending meteor disaster was simply don't look up. Everyone's like, hey man, if you don't look up, there's no problem.
Yeah, no, this is Thailand's Don't Look Up. It's like I just don't get it. And every time I read about the facts, essentially the city is sinking and the sea is rising, and it's just going to be underwater. Like I've heard projections that by even 2050, so like within the next 30 years, like we're probably still going to be alive, and no one's talking about it. And the government's not doing anything. So it's the don't look up problem. I don't know if the city's actually going to have to move, but my prediction is disaster, or it's some really, really bad situation that they come to their senses like way too late. And I predict a literal quagmire. Literally, really? That's what I predict, a quagmire.
Well, this is an interesting question because I know that we have listeners who might be listening to this right now who are not believers in the sea rising, Bangkok sinking, global warming thing. They don't think it's, they think it's not happening like that. I am a man of science. I tend to believe, 90% of the world's scientists over a couple of very smart friends I have. But I also am not worried about it, and I should be. But it's one of those things.
You're one of the don't look up people. You're one of the don't look up people.
I'm looking up, but I'm like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? This is the problem with these kind of things, is that they happen so slowly. It's really hard.
That's true. That is true.
To build like a mass movement to counter it.
No, this should be like Thailand's space program. This should be, it's like when John F. Kennedy said, like, we're going to go to the moon in 10 years, and the whole U.S. government just put all their resources behind it. The Thai government needs to be doing that. Like, they should be treating it like it's an emergency. I just don't get it. So I'm super pessimistic about this.
I don't think it's going to be what you said. I think eventually what's going to happen is it's not going to be like tidal waves are going to be washing up against the 30th floor of the Mahanakhon building. I think slowly over the decades, flooding in certain parts of the city will become worse and worse and worse, and they'll become slowly less populated, and people will move further north and out around the outskirts. And eventually parts of Bangkok will just be kind of abandoned, as parts of Bangkok already seem to be abandoned now.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure how it's going to play out. I think they're going to come to their senses pretty late, and they're going to have to spend even more money than they thought. And like, will they be able to fix it? I don't know, maybe, but I'm just going to say no. Like, I don't think they're going to fix it. I just don't know exactly what's going to happen.
We've talked about it before on the show, but did you ever read that book, The Wind-Up Girl by Paolo Bacigalupi?
I never actually read it, but I know the book.
Yeah, great sci-fi book that takes place a few hundred years in the future in Bangkok. And if you go to the internet and type in The Wind-Up Girl concept art, in the book, they have built a massive seawall around the city to protect it from the
Oh, wow.
rising ocean.
Okay.
And
There you go.
There's some artists who have done some concept art for that story, and it's some really striking images of Bangkok surrounded by a massive seawall that goes all the way down into Chonburi province. Really cool.
Maybe they will do that, but they're going to have to do something. I'm just baffled by the whole thing.
It ain't going to
I
be
don't get
cheap,
it.
whatever the solution is. And we're already seeing it in Jakarta, right? Jakarta is moving. Indonesia's building a brand new capital city, and Jakarta's eventually going to be left to do whatever devices.
Right, correct. I mean, many cities are in big trouble.
Time to buy up the land around Chiang Mai real quick.
That's right. All right, man. I got one for you. This is
All right.
geopolitics. It's kind of my field, but I figured I'd get Greg's take. Greg's take's always interesting.
Interesting, yes. Right? Maybe not.
All right, here we go. Will Thailand continue to remain pragmatically neutral, or will it eventually have to choose a side, the U.S. or China?
Yeah, that's a good one, man.
Geopolitical correct. This is like a new thing.
It's a brand new thing. Yeah. I like the phrase pragmatically neutral because we've heard it on shows many, many times with interviews with historians and scholars. And that's one thing that Thailand has historically always been is pragmatic, whether it's choosing sides in wars or being diplomatic or
Right.
politics or economics.
They tend absolutely not to choose sides unless they have to.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, like everything in my life, I always press it through the filter of pop culture. But I don't know if you remember that excellent TV show Firefly, which takes place far in the future, hundreds of years in the future.
I do.
And the only
I do.
two superpowers that emerged out of Earth in the 20th century were China and the United States. And so in the TV show, when they want to curse, they always curse in Mandarin because that's like
funny.
one of the two languages that survived in English. So I think eventually, I don't know how long Thailand's going to be able to play both sides because obviously China and America are they're partners on a lot of things, but they also compete on a lot of things. And geopolitically, I mean, sort of to quote another pop culture icon, Highlander, there can be only one. So I don't know how long Thailand can continue sort of being in the middle of them, because eventually one of them is going to cross a line and the other one's going to say, look, you're either with us or against us. And I don't know how long this can last. I don't know.
You know, it's actually an interesting question. I mean, it really depends on if there's a serious conflict between the U.S. and China that forces some kind of choice.
Right.
You know, because basically if it's just kind of economic and cultural competition, then Thailand it is not forced to make a choice. But if there was an actual like hot war or like a serious conflict.
Well, like, you know, if China went into Taiwan or if Russia nukes Ukraine, like, who knows?
I have an answer too. So do you have an answer? So if they had to choose, which side would they choose?
Yeah, I am not in a position to make an answer, so I'm going to make a wild guess that they would probably come down on the side of China just for pragmatic geographic reasons. It's right here.
I mean, I think you're correct in that respect, like culturally and, you know, Chinese ties, you know, more or less run the country. But I don't know, man, like ever since World War II, like the U.S. and Thailand have been like, I think the U.S. and Thailand are closer than people realize, especially militarily.
They got Cobra Gold every year.
That's right. I mean, I think Thailand chooses the U.S. I think if they had to. I mean, like the question notes, I think they would do whatever they could not to make a choice.
Right.
I think they go U.S.
Well, yeah, that's an interesting one. I guess
We'll just have to wait 50 years to find out.
if there's ever a mega geopolitical global tragedy, write us an email. We'll see what happens. All right, let me ask you a question then. And this is coming on from this question because I was also going to mention something about how China smartly invested in a ton of rail lines throughout Asia and the world. So that leads me to the next question. Do you think Thailand will ever truly have high-speed rail?
Okay. I actually was just reading about this like last week. Sometime ago. I was curious, so I Googled it, and this is something I'm more optimistic on. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff that about Thailand that I'm pretty pessimistic about. Like the political situation, I'm pretty pessimistic about. like the sinking. But for some reason, Thailand or Bangkok manages like public transportation well. After I was here 5 years and I had like some credibility, right, or thought I knew something about Thailand.
Right.
If you had showed me then the current map of the MRT and BTS, I would say no way that is that going to happen.
Yeah, it's pretty expensive.
I would have said 0.0 that Thailand gets its shit together and has an extensive network like this. Like there's something about public transportation that Thailand manages to get shit done, and I'm not sure why that is. So I think we're going to have high-speed rail. It's amazing that Thailand's going to have high-speed rail before the U.S. Like that's actually even my prediction. Like the U.S. is so damn big, we should have high-speed rail. Like but because it's like we're so obsessed with like the free market and the government doesn't do like big, the U.S. government, since they built the highway system, which is like what, the 30s or something,
right.
20s and
right.
30s, like the U.S. government doesn't do big, giant, massive infrastructure projects,
right.
But Thailand does, and so I think they've already started. Like at least one segment of the high-speed rail. So I think this is going to happen, and I'm all for it. Like the bottom line is, we've talked about how we like to take the overnight train up to Chiang Mai, but man, wouldn't it be cool to like zip up there in 2 hours or 3 hours? I don't know what it would be. Like 3 hours? Like I don't know what it would be, but it'd be pretty cool to zip up there, huh?
It would be great. Yeah. Well, they've opened like my friend just took a high-speed line in Laos from Luang Prabang to Vientiane. And that's
a true high-speed
line built by the Chinese, yeah. And
oh shit,
that's eventually going to reach from Kunming, I think, all the way down to Singapore.
Right, I think I read about this plan. I love it, man.
Yeah,
I hope it happens.
I think Thailand will, because they have no other choice. If they don't, then the other people that are building the high-speed rails, like the Chinese, are just going to be like, well, we'll just zag around Thailand through Cambodia here, and you'll get zero of the benefits. So I think they have to. It's do or die at this point.
Yeah. So this is one of the few things. I don't know. I don't want to say few, but I'm actually optimistic about this one. I think it's already happening, and I think it will happen.
Me too. Yeah, I agree.
All right. Okay. I got a question for you. This is a little more specific, but it's still near and dear to my heart. It's about the future of Nana Plaza. Do you think Nana Plaza will survive, or do you expect it to be demolished like almost everything else and replaced with like a mall or a condo?
Man, this is a great question. I've noodled over this for years, because it's a really interesting question to me, because it's economic, it's political, it's gray market, it's real estate. So for those that don't know, Nana Plaza is sort of on the corner of Sukhumvit Soi 4, and it's like the famous adult entertainment plaza, and it's this big 3-story courtyard full of bars where, rumor has it, some pretty titillating stuff goes on. But it's been such an iconic location for so many years, and it must be raking in so much money. But
I'm guessing. I wonder if it's funny. Obviously, I'm much older now. In the early days, I did spend time at Nana, but man, I haven't been there in a while. Like there's something, COVID. I think COVID killed a lot of the red light districts in Bangkok, and I don't know how much they've recovered. Like I really don't know.
Yeah.
Like is Nana even busy these days? I have no idea.
Well, I think I mentioned on a previous bonus show a few months ago, I happened to be walking home past that area, and I stopped in real quick. Didn't stay too long. It was more of the same. Nothing to my eyes had changed really that much.
But it wasn't empty, is what you're saying.
It wasn't empty, but it wasn't booming. Although I wasn't there.
Right.
It wasn't late or anything. But still, it was open and it was busy. But I just think that stretch of lower Sukhumvit, eventually the land prices will just get too high, and it'll be like, well, we can make more money by building a 60-story condo than we can by having a 3-story funhouse, So
The research plans, right?
I think eventually the economic forces are just going to say, sorry, you no longer bring to the table what you
Yeah.
used to.
Yeah, this is an interesting question. I just don't know enough about real estate. Bangkok real estate is just so odd because even in totally prime areas, there will still be undeveloped land, and I can never figure it out. I always assume it's just wealthy people who are so wealthy that they're not even maximizing the potential. Like they're just sitting on sweet real estate.
Right.
So I'm guessing that I think Nana Plaza is owned by the Nana family. Like I think that's their actual last name. Like they must own the land. And,
Yeah.
and you're right. They're obviously making a bundle, but yeah, with like a giant office tower or condo, they probably could make more, I guess.
Or a mall that's going to be, it would be the only mall between Paragon and Terminal 21, the only big mall.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
has
interesting.
direct SkyTrain access. Those are pretty tantalizing selling features.
Yeah. Well, if I had $1 billion, I'd make him an offer.
Yeah, me too. I think it'll happen eventually, although I don't know when. I'll say another 10 years, within 10 years.
But you haven't heard any rumors about it happening, have you?
No.
It's just speculation.
Just speculation. Pure speculation based on absolutely nothing.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. All right. I got my last question for you.
Alrighty.
And this is right up your alley. You're gonna dig into this one, I think, with all your teeth. Will a non-military political party in Thailand ever survive dissolution?
Ooh, yeah. This is at least up my alley, or I want it to be up my alley.
Right.
We talked about this. We talked about our new prime minister a little bit on the bonus show, and I am trying to up my Thai politics game. And man, there's weird stuff going on right now.
There is.
With Prime Minister Shreta getting booted, and then now we have former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawat's daughter, Pattongtarn, as the Prime Minister. It's just a very weird situation. And then just very recently, I think it was announced yesterday, that Pheu Thai has kicked the military party out of the coalition, the ruling party coalition, which that has not happened for 10 years. Since the 2014 coup, the military has been part of the either controlling the government or part of the ruling coalition.
Right. So for listeners that need a little bit of background, just really quickly, traditionally the civilian political parties, if they get a little bit too uppity or start biting off a bit more than they can chew, traditionally it's always been a bit of a handy trick for someone to find some law somewhere that they've broken and say, sorry, you're dissolved, and everyone is banned from
Correct.
politics, leaving the military to step in and put things back on track.
Two different versions of Thaksin's parties have been dissolved before, and then two different versions of progressive parties have been dissolved
within the last few years.
Yeah. And now that Pheu Thai has apparently pushed the military out of the ruling coalition, and it's normally the Constitutional Court is seen as this conservative force that is allied with the military. Maybe there's a non-military party that could survive. Maybe the Democrats are the old traditional party, also conservative, but they're very weak right now. So I don't think they're going to get back into power. So the question doesn't even apply to them. So basically, they've dissolved two progressive parties, so they're willing to do that, and they've actually dissolved two versions of Thaksin's parties. So the short answer is: will a non-military party ever survive? No, they will not survive. Like I'm always waiting for the point where Thai politics turns some corner. And we're not repeating a cycle. It's like, and I've been waiting for this for like a long time. Like I remember when Thaksin got reelected in 2004, I was like, okay, things are going to be different now. Like in 2004, I thought things were going to be different.
Right.
And
you were so young, so naive.
That's right.
Really sweet summer child.
So I think you're a fool. It's foolish to think that Pheu Thai is going to survive. They might, Like maybe we've turned some kind of corner. But with what the Constitutional Court has recently done and what they've done in the past, it's like I don't think the current prime minister is going to survive. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen like in the next 6 months, but to me, like the smart bet has to be that the current prime minister or party, this version of the party, won't survive 2 years.
Interesting. But do you think that
you have to bet that? I think you have to bet that.
Do you think that the old guards in charge will eventually come around and sense the anger and the tension underneath the surface of the general populace, which they've traditionally sort of seemed to not really care about? Do you think someone will be like, hey, look, if we continue down this path, something's going to explode?
I don't know, man. I mean, I don't know how things are going to change, because the old guard, okay, very specific people who I don't want to mention, very specific generals, they're literally getting too old. I mean,
right.
But what happens in the past, that there's always like the next generation of military people. So it's like so the really old guys now are in their like late 70s, but I'm sure there's guys in their like early 60s that are ready to do the same thing.
Yeah, maybe.
So I don't it's like I've talked delicately with my students about some of this, and I'm at a loss for like how Thai politics are going to get fixed.
I don't think anyone knows that.
Yeah, I'm at a loss, but I think you kind of have to bet that the current prime minister is not going to survive. Like that's just the smart bet. That I don't see. I mean, you can always like take a chance and say, no, they've turned a corner, she'll survive. More power to you. I hope she does. I don't support coups, and I don't support coups by the Constitutional Court either. It's like, to me, it's just another version of the same thing. You can't. The bottom line is, I believe in the rule of law, but it's a bit silly for the court on a technicality to like overrule the will of millions of people.
Yeah. Well,
it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking is going to be eventually. The millions of people will be like, actually, we're in charge.
Yeah.
But
yeah. So I guess somewhat depressing, but I guess my answer is no. I don't think it's going to survive. All right, I got one more for you.
All right.
Another question actually about Sukhumvit. We've talked about like big mall culture,
right,
in Bangkok. They keep building new ones. But my last question for you is going to be, which of the big malls that already exist, which is the first one do you think is going to get scrapped?
Like knocked down?
Or maybe rebuilt? Which is the first one that they're going to give up on?
Interesting one. It's funny because I'm generally broadly pro mall up to a point. We've talked about it before. When you have a kid, that whole math changes about the usefulness of malls.
That's right.
But if you get away from Sukhumvit, Bangkok actually doesn't have that many giant malls. Like on my side of the river, Thonburi, there's Icon Siam, and that's it for kilometers and kilometers. There's nothing. So
right.
But of course, Sukhumvit is sort of saturated, and now it's spreading out down to Rama 4 and Silam area. It's
weird because like Central World, it was kind of old and beat, but then they did a massive remodeling.
Well, this is funny because Central World, for those that don't remember, it used to be called World Trade Center. And it was a terrible mall. It was a dark, dingy maze of shitty stores. It was a really awful experience.
But huge.
And then they closed it down for like a full year and completely refurbished it inside and outside, expanded it. And now it's a great mall. But I remember when it opened, they had a thing at the Foreign Correspondents Club, a discussion about it. And I think the stat that came up was actually like, it's going to need like 3 or 8 or 20 or whatever it was, 747s full of people every day just to remain profitable. And people laughed. They thought there's no way this is going to survive.
Right.
And now it's booming, right? Central Embassy is probably the one of the newest malls.
That's the one that seems to be least populated.
Yeah, and if people joke about it and call it Central Empty. And I've posed that question to people before, like when are they going to pull the plug and just admit that it's not really that popular? But they said they can't, they won't. The central group that owns it, they would never do that. They're just going to keep it open. They have to keep it
It's
open.
still pretty new. It's still pretty new.
Well, yeah, but then you've got
It's not beat. It's not beat.
it's not beat. It's a nice mall too, but it's kind of awkwardly located on Sukhumvit. It's difficult to get to.
That's right.
But my prediction actually is Emporium. I think Emporium is going to be knocked down and rebuilt, because just across the street from Emporium, you have Quartier, which was only 6-8 years ago. And then just across the park from them, you have Sphere, which just opened a few months ago. So Emporium, I used to go to that when I first got to Thailand 23 years ago. It's kind of old.
So did I.
Old and crusty now, right?
Interesting. That's interesting. I mean, it's they've done some remodeling inside, but you're right. Like now that they have like these two new sweet malls.
Right. Look what they did with the Dusatani on the corner of Ramaphore and Silom. They knocked the whole thing down and they're going to build the Dusatani. They're just going to rebuild it.
Right.
This
is interesting. That's an interesting approach. I mean, out of the three, Emporium is just worse. Even though they've done renovations on the inside, it's all connected.
Right. Right.
And you can walk around.
It reminds me
would they demolish it?
It reminds me of the World Trade Center. It's a bit better, not as bad, but it's a nice mall, but it's not spacious and airy and bright. It's a little bit kind of old.
Agreed. No, agreed.
So I think that's going to be the first one to go.
Interesting. I mean, I would love to see the numbers on M-Sphere. I think M-Sphere is cool, but every time I've gone there, it's been like moderately busy, but other than the first week or two when it was slammed, every time I go there, it's not that busy. Right. And then I remember when they first opened, they really promoted that they were going to have 24-hour food court, 24-hour grocery store, and then it's not. It closes at midnight now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the food floor, the first and second floors are usually pretty busy, but up above that, it's pretty anemic. And they've always been like, oh, we've got this huge concert hall. I'm like, great. Where are the concerts? I haven't seen any.
That's right.
So
I wonder if that whatever you want to call that, middle Sukhumvit or upper Sukhumvit. It's not quite upper Sukhumvit, but I wonder if it's oversaturated. Maybe three malls right next to each other is just too much.
I'm still bitter because M-Sphere was built on the site of the old Dubliner. That's right. The late great Dubliner, one of the best old pubs in Bangkok, which I used to love going to, but R.I.P.
Agreed.
Anyway.
Agreed.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's interesting. That's those are our little hypothetical fortune telling predictions, best guesses about the future of certain elements of Bangkok. And write in, let us know if you agree or disagree, or if you have your own spins on those. But that was fun.
Yeah.
It was a fun.
So listeners, you can bury this episode in a bottle, like bury it in the sand, and then in 50 years, dig up this episode.
That's right.
And then let us know how we did.
Because we all know the first rule of the internet. Once it's on the internet, it disappears and no one ever sees it again.
That's right.
All right, let's do something we call Would You Rather, where one of us picks two contrasting situations tied to Thailand to debate and choose which one we'd prefer. So Ed, this year I believe you volunteered for the hot seat.
Yeah, I got something interesting for you. Recently we celebrated our buddy Scott's birthday, and I wasn't able to do the bike ride, but you did a classic bike ride that we've gone on many times, out to Gokrat and Chit Beer. So it made me wonder. I used to bike back home in the States, and I'm sure you've done at least a little biking back in Canada when you were like a wee lad.
Yeah, not enough, but yeah.
Yeah. And plus, where you came from was kind of semi-rural. I picture it was like you probably could take long bike rides, country bike rides if you wanted to, right?
Oh, dude, in like junior high and high school, summer vacation, I was on my bike in the morning. I didn't come back until the sun went down at like 9 p.m. Yeah, on the bike all day.
Okay, would you rather do a Bangkok ride similar to what you've done recently here in Thailand, or would you rather do the more open air outside of the city, country riding that you could do back home.
Oh, man.
The Calgary ride. The Calgary ride versus the Bangkok ride.
I know what side I'm going to come down on, and it kind of hurts. Yeah, on one hand, I mean, riding in Bangkok is fun. It's way more interesting than riding in Canada. You have the craziest routes, you see the weirdest stuff, you meet the most interesting people. There's just endless opportunities for photographs. A similar ride in Canada is quite boring. You've got nice bike paths, but they usually don't go by anything super, super interesting unless you're out in the mountains or something. Of course, the weather in Canada is much nicer. The weather here makes it a bit difficult sometimes if it's too hot.
It's probably safer. It's probably safer in Canada, right?
Safer, yeah. But here it's a bit more dangerous. But again, it's also much more interesting, culturally, historically. But I think I'm going to have to give the edge to Canada.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah. And the only reason I say that is because it is a bit more boring. And there's not a lot to see, but it's just a different type of riding. When the bike rides that we do in Thailand are like social rides, they're exploration rides.
True that.
But in Canada, it's more of like a fitness distance kind of ride, Well,
there's something to be said for if it, it's cooler and you're kind of out in the country. You don't have to be like in the hardcore country, but you're kind of that open road bike ride when the weather is nice and you're not stressed out about traffic or going over bumps and potholes. There is something to be said about that. Like, and you can experience that in Thailand. Like, if you're outside the city or if you're down south. I know you've done some rides like, outside of Bangkok. Yeah. So you can experience that here. But there is something like freeing about that. Like the weird thing about our rides in Bangkok is you don't get that feeling of like freedom.
No,
because you're like stopping and turning and going down a narrow pathway and like avoiding this bump and carrying your bike over like a something in the way.
Like crossing a clong on a tree branch bridge or something like that. And I like that. That's fun and adventurous. But I think ultimately I would prefer being able to just not put my feet on the ground for 2 hours, and know that I'm not going to be stressed out about a car cutting me off or, a dog chasing me or something.
Yeah. Like the speed and freedom of like a semi-country ride, if the weather's nice, I kind of agree. I think I agree with you. It's kind of, that experience is kind of untouchable. And like, and our Bangkok rides, it really is a totally different thing.
Yeah. It's not as exciting, but in Bangkok, you never come back from a ride relaxed. You always come back wiped out. But from a ride in Canada, you'd be like, oh, that was great. I got some exercise, got some silence, got some clean air. That's not going to happen in town here.
All right, I think I'd probably agree with that. Although I do love the Bangkok rides, but it is a different animal.
Yeah, totally, good one.
All righty. A final thanks to our patrons who support the show. Patrons get a ton of cool perks and the warm, fuzzy feeling knowing that they're helping in our never-ending quest for cool content. Find out more by clicking support on our website. And connect with us online. We're Bangkok Podcasts on social media, BangkokPodcast.com on the web, or simply BangkokPodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from our listeners and always reply to our messages.
Right on. You can also listen to each episode on YouTube. Send us a voicemail through our website and we'll feature on the show. Hit me up on Threads at BKK Greg. Thanks for listening, everyone. Hope you're doing well. We'll see you back here next week.
For sure.